he was never supposed to make it this far. Not at his size, not at his weight, not with every scout in the country writing the same words next to his name. Too small. Then he stood on a stage in New York and held up a trophy no wide receiver had touched in 29 years. And then he stood in the end zone in a Super Bowl in the very state that birthed him and made him who he is. And in a few months, for the first time in his career, there's nobody left in that Philadelphia receiver room bigger than him, faster than him, or more talked about than him. This is the story of how DeVonta Smith turned every doubt about his body into the reason nobody can cover him.
I'm not the biggest. I've been doubted a lot just because of my size. No job is too big.
DeVonta Smith was born in Amite City, Louisiana, a town of about 4,000 people an hour north of New Orleans. Football there wasn't just a hobby, it was their entire calendar. Friday nights decided what the whole town talked about for the next 7 days. This was the city that birthed DeVonta Smith. DeVonta Smith had talent, and it showed up early in how DeVonta Smith played the game. The kind of instincts for space and timing nobody can draw up on a whiteboard and hand over to a player. What didn't show up was size. While other kids his age filled out, DeVonta Smith stayed lean. Barely over 160 pounds throughout his high school career. Coaches noticed it, scouts noticed it, and that number followed him everywhere he went from that point on. DeVonta Smith committed to Alabama in January of 2017, stepping into a receiver room that was sending guys in the first round of the draft every single year. When he got there, he didn't just sit and wait around. He was productive right away, in one of the toughest conferences in the country, and every practice rep against Alabama's own defense sharpened him for what was coming. Think about what that actually means. Most true freshmen at a program like that spend their first year trying to survive practice without getting embarrassed. DeVonta Smith was already getting real snaps against SEC secondaries loaded with future NFL players as a true freshman. But no matter how many routes he won, the conversation kept circling back to the same place. Could a receiver built like that actually hold up? Nick Saban didn't see it that way. He told reporters straight up that in all his years of coaching, he'd never had a player that size play as physical as DeVonta Smith did. By 2018, the connection between DeVonta Smith and young backup quarterback Tua Tagovailoa was becoming the story of the season. And on the biggest stage in college football, that connection produced a moment nobody who saw it will ever forget. During the national championship game against Georgia, it went into overtime. Tua finds DeVonta Smith in the end zone. Alabama wins it all, and a 19-year-old from a town of 4,000 people just made the play that decided a national title. What made DeVonta Smith different from other undersized receivers wasn't his speed. Plenty of small wide receivers can run. What Smith had was his setup. He'd spam a route one way 3 times during a game, get a cornerback comfortable with that same pattern, and on the 4th rep, break the exact opposite direction before the defender could ever recover. And the way DeVonta Smith did it was smooth. That's hundreds of hours of film study turned into instinct and put into practice. In 2019, he came back and had one of the best seasons of his college career up until that point. Well over 700 yards, more touchdowns, and a growing reputation among coaches as one of the most disciplined, precise route runner in the country, regardless of his size. Against Ole Miss that season, he went for over 5 touchdowns and nearly 300 yards in one afternoon. A few weeks later, he went to Baton Rouge and torched the loaded LSU secondary for over 200 yards and 2 more touchdowns. When the year wrapped up, no player on Alabama's roster had more receiving yards or touchdowns than DeVonta Smith did, on a team with 3 first-round wide receivers. He wasn't reinventing himself. He was rebuilding his game with more precision than he had before. Every release off the line got sharper. Every break got crispier. The doubt from the critics didn't take anything away from him. If anything, it put a chip on his shoulder, and DeVonta Smith was ready to eat. DeVonta Smith answered that criticism in 2020 with one of the greatest individual seasons college football has ever seen. 117 catches, 1,856 yards, and 23 touchdowns. He led the entire country in every single one of those categories. Every single week, a different secondary tried to take him out of the game. Ole Miss game planned specifically for him and still gave up 11 catches, 164 yards, and 1 touchdown. Against Florida in the SEC championship game, he went for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Alabama won a shootout 52-46. Then came the national championship against Ohio State, a secondary loaded with future first-round draft picks, and a full week of preparation built specifically to slow DeVonta Smith down. But none of that mattered. 12 catches, 215 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And he did almost all of it in one half before a finger injury ended his night early. And Alabama still won by 4 touchdowns. For a guy already carrying a weight question into every draft conversation, an injury like that handed every skeptic a brand new reason to stay skeptical. Could he hold up over a full season? Could he take a hit from an NFL safety and get back up the following week? Nobody had the answers to those questions yet, so DeVonta Smith went back to work. 6 days before that game, DeVonta Smith stood at a podium in New York, becoming the first wide receiver in 29 years to win the Heisman Trophy. The last receiver to do that was Desmond Howard back in 1991. DeVonta Smith said it plainly. Everybody told him he was too small. His family believed in him. His teammates believed in him. And eventually, so did he.
First off, I would like to thank God. Without him, none of this would be possible. To all the young kids out there that's not the biggest, not the strongest, just keep pushing, because I'm not the biggest. I've been doubted a lot just because of my size. And really, it just comes down to you put your mind to it, you can do it. No job is too big. If you put your mind to it, you can do it, and just keep believing in God, and you'll get where you want to be.
And DeVonta Smith proved himself right. Alabama beat Ohio State 52-24 that night. It wasn't competitive by the time the final whistle blew. And a receiver who couldn't crack 170 pounds had just delivered the single most dominant performance of his entire college career on the biggest stage that this sport has. Now you'd think a Heisman and a national title would end the conversation about DeVonta Smith's size. But it didn't. At his pro day, DeVonta Smith weighed in right around 166 pounds. And that number was still the loudest thing in that room for most teams. Some analysts had him sliding on their boards despite everything he had done on the field. 2 receivers that he had outproduced in college, Jamar Chase and his own teammate Jalen Waddle, both came off the board before he did. But on draft night in April of 2021, the Philadelphia Eagles traded up from 12 to 10 to get him, reuniting him with former teammate Jalen Hurts from their Alabama days. But for a player with a Heisman and a national title performance for the ages, there were still people in that room who still needed convincing. The league didn't even have a clean physical comparison for DeVonta Smith. Some evaluators reached outside of football entirely, comparing his frame to those of basketball players, because there wasn't another wide receiver prospect quite built like DeVonta Smith was. When a scouting department can't find a comparison, that either means one of 2 things. Either you're a bust waiting to happen, or you're about to make every comparison obsolete. During his rookie year, Philadelphia didn't ease him into anything slowly. DeVonta Smith walked into an offensive rebuild in 2021 with no A.J. Brown next to him yet, and no established number 1 to take the coverage off of his back. Every defense that season knew exactly who they were keying on, but it didn't matter. His first career catch went for a touchdown in week 1. From there, he became Jalen Hurts' clearest target on a team still figuring out his identity, and he did it without a single week off. No missed games, no setbacks, and no sign that the frame that everyone was worried about was going to be a problem. Mid-season, around a Kansas City defense built around stopping exactly this kind of receiver, DeVonta Smith went for over 100 yards. Later in the year against Denver, he beat coverage twice for 2 touchdowns. Every single one of those weeks, he was the number 1 read, and every single one of those weeks, DeVonta Smith delivered. He finished his rookie year with 64 catches, 916 yards, and 5 touchdowns. An Eagles rookie receiving record nobody had come close to touching in over 30 years. Whatever doubt Alabama left unresolved about his body, this was the answer. Not an interview, but DeVonta Smith's stat sheet. And here's a stat that doesn't get balled up enough when people talk about DeVonta Smith. Across his first 4 NFL seasons, DeVonta Smith caught passes at a rate near 70%, one of the best marks of any receiver in the league over that stretch. Better than plenty of the names that got talked about ahead of him every single week. That number matters more than it should. In a league where 1 drop pass and 1 big spot can end a season, a receiver or quarterback trusts to catch nearly everything thrown his way isn't just good. He's the guy a coordinator builds 3rd down calls around without even thinking twice. In 2022, the Philadelphia Eagles traded for A.J. Brown, and the target share that used to belong entirely to DeVonta Smith started to split. He didn't fight it, he leaned into it, and the result was 95 catches for 1,196 yards, the most reception by a wide receiver in Philadelphia Eagles history. As Philadelphia rode all the way to Super Bowl 57, the Super Bowl ended in a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, 38-35, the kind of game that sits with the team an entire offseason. DeVonta Smith came back in 2023 and matched his touchdown total from the year before, 81 catches for over 1,000 yards, doing it through injury and inconsistency that would have buried a lesser receiver's production. Over the next few years, DeVonta Smith put together 3 1,000-yard years in 4 seasons as A.J. Brown's running mate, signed a 3-year, $75 million extension, and remained the guy Jalen Hurts could count on no matter what was happening around him. Through different offensive coordinators, through different levels of noise around the team, through all the adversity, DeVonta Smith's routes and DeVonta Smith's hands never changed. Just look at the 2024 playoff run specifically. The wildcard game against Green Bay, he had 4 catches. The divisional game against the Rams, he had 4 more catches. Then in the NFC Championship game against Washington, DeVonta Smith had 4 more. That was DeVonta Smith's pattern. While A.J. Brown's numbers swung up and down from week to week, DeVonta Smith was the one constant Jalen Hurts could go to on third downs. No matter the opponent, no matter the stage. Then comes February of 2025, Super Bowl 59 against the Kansas City Chiefs, a rematch of Super Bowl 57. Kansas City on the other sideline for the second time in 3 years. This time, Philadelphia's defense set the tone from the opening series, and the Chiefs never found an answer. Kansas City had a full month to prepare for this offense. They built a plan to slow down Saquon Barkley on the ground and jam A.J. Brown at the line. What they didn't have an answer for was the receiver they spent the least amount of time talking about all week. In the game Philadelphia dominated from the jump, it was Jalen Hurts on his way to being Super Bowl MVP, finding DeVonta Smith for a 46-yard touchdown that turned a big lead into a statement. That was the kind of throw and catch that ends a game before the fourth quarter even starts. That play was the dagger. When the game ended, the game was 40-22. The Eagles won in spectacular fashion. So add it up. A national title, a Heisman Trophy, and now a Super Bowl ring. And DeVonta Smith is one of only 5 men to ever collect all 3. A kid from a town most of the country couldn't even find on a map, who spent every level of his career answering the same questions about his body, now has the one thing that ends every single argument for good. They questioned him, and he answered. The Slim Reaper overcame all. Before we continue, here's your first question. What was DeVonta Smith's constant throughout the 2024 playoff run? Drop that in the comments section and let me know. On June 1st of 2026, the Eagles traded A.J. Brown to the New England Patriots. For the first time in his career, there was nobody left in that receiver room bigger than DeVonta Smith, louder than DeVonta Smith, or more talked about than DeVonta Smith. 2 days later, he spoke publicly about the shift for the first time. He said, "I have a job to do, and I plan to go out there and do that."
What were your thoughts when you saw the trade become official yesterday?
I mean, business is business. No, I don't got no say so in that.
Are you glad that the trade happened yesterday now that it can finally be, it's been talked about for a while now?
That don't have nothing to do with me.
His teammate, Jordan Mailata, put it even more directly, saying DeVonta Smith has always been the number 1 wide receiver in his eyes, no matter what it said on the depth chart. DeVonta Smith is already the most productive postseason receiver in Eagles history. Behind him now sits first-round rookie Rakai Lemon, along with Hollywood Brown and Dontavian Wicks. The volume, for the first time in 5 years, belongs entirely to DeVonta Smith. Every doubt that ever followed this man came from somebody looking at the scale instead of looking at his film. Now there's no A.J. Brown to share coverage with. No excuse if the numbers dip, and there's no reason that they should. If the volume shows up the way the people around this building expect it to, this isn't going to be a modest bump. This is a receiver who spent 5 years averaging 1,000 yards as somebody's second option, finally getting a full season as the only option. Every level DeVonta Smith has ever played at came with the same note attached to it. Too small, too light, not built for this. And every single time, he answered it the same way. Not with an interview, not with an argument, but with what he showed on his tape. He's not the biggest receiver in the league, and he never will be. But size was never the measurement that actually mattered to him. It was always about what he did with what he had. From a town of 4,000 people to a stage in New York to the biggest game in football, the same question kept getting asked, and the same guy kept answering the same way. Not with his mouth, but with his hands, his routes, and his football mind. There are receivers in this league right now who study his film specifically to learn how to set up a route, how to sail one direction and break the other way, how to be the guy a quarterback trusts with the ball in his hands when everything is on the line. That's not a small legacy. That's the kind of thing that outlasts any single season. So here's what I want to know from you. Now that A.J. Brown is gone, and this is finally, undeniably, DeVonta Smith's offense, is DeVonta Smith about to have the best season of his career? Or does the target share finally catch up to a defense that's been game planning around him for 5 years? Drop it in the comment section and let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And once again, I've been Brother Shy, and this has been the Midnight Green Mafia.